We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
You're listening to Founder Stories with Anouk and Barak. Brought to you by F2 Capital in partnership with IDC International Radio and No Camels.
My parents wanted me to be a teacher, so I said, no, I'm going to the Technion. And there were not lots of girls studying in the Technion. So they said, you might not find a husband. So this was another thing to do in the Technion, like to look for a good husband.
Hello and welcome to Founder Stories. Today with us is Reem Younis, co-founder of the very successful medical device company Alpha Omega, which is designing guidance systems for brain surgery and implants. Reem tells an unlikely story of leaving Nazareth and meeting the love of her life and co-founder at the Technion in Haifa. Reem now works to grow her company from Nazareth while supporting other young Arab Israelis to follow in her footsteps. Reem, marhaba, and shukran jazilan for being here with us today. Those are the few words of Arabic that I remember from taking Arabic classes in London when I had a dream of learning Arabic before I made Aliyah. It's still an unfulfilled dream of mine.
Yeah, maybe it's time to start fulfilling
Yes,
that.
yes. But I think it's so important when we live in a country where such a big part of the population speaks a different language, to just be able to say basic words. Most Israelis don't even know how to say hello and thank you in Arabic.
Yeah, actually, this is what I wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
That you're much better than the Israelis here.
Thank you. Just start by telling us a little bit about Reem, for those who don't know you. Where do you come from?
Well, the name is Reem Jabali. And after marriage, you usually take the name of your husband. So now I'm Reem Younis. And I still remember when I went to change my family name. I told them, I want to keep my old name. I said, you can do it. And what was interesting for me to discover later, that in Jordan, in Egypt, the woman keeps her family name.
Really? I didn't know that.
So
where are you from? Where is your family from?
I was born in Nazareth. And I'm the middle kid. I have an older sister and a younger brother, so I had to keep pushing all the time to get my place on the table. I grew up in a very simple family. My mother was a teacher. She taught the first grade. And my father, he worked at the municipality, very simple employee.
How far back do you trace your family roots in Nazareth?
Not that much, because I had a crazy grandfather who decided 1910 to travel to the Dominican Republic.
Really?
And he took 2 baby girls with him. So I can't trace the family beyond 1910. He stayed there for 30 years. He came back. So we still have a very close family in the Dominican Republic.
Reem, if you look at statistics, Israeli Arabs are not faring well. More than 50% live in poverty, and Arabs comprise 20% of Israel's population, but contribute only something like 8% of the GDP, and only 2% of the high-tech workforce is Arab Israelis. How do you change that?
Those numbers are too big for me. I try to change what I can change. So basically starting the company and deciding to have, I would say, high-tech in the Arab community was a start. So now we're employing about 80 people in Nazareth. Most of them are Arabs, less are Jewish people. But we're trying a little bit to move the needle. But changing the numbers that you talked about is really the job of the government.
When you talk about statistics about Arabs not being represented in the high-tech workforce, you don't really differentiate between Christian Arabs and Muslim Arabs. And Christian Arabs statistically are more educated, are wealthier. How do you look at that difference, or do you not make a difference?
I don't think that Christians are better than Muslims. I think it's about opportunities. So if we go back before 48, we see that lots of Christian ministries and open schools. So there we have the best schools, we have hospitals, we have all of these things that helped educating the Arabs in Nazareth or in Haifa or in Jaffa more than the other places. So it's not that the Christians are more educated, it's that Christians had more chances. And when you get more chances, you can succeed better. Like, this is the way that I view things. People, especially in Israel here, they like to say that Christians are more educated than Muslims, which is not true. If we go to a village named Arabi, Arabi has the highest percentage of doctors in Israel, not only in the Arab community, in whole Israel.
Did
Even
your
there.
parents push you to succeed in school and professionally in your career?
I don't know how this happened, but since I was in the school, I knew I'm going to pursue higher education. They wanted me to be a teacher, so it's easier to raise kids and be a good wife. This did not work for me, so I chose civil engineering. But it was clear that I'm going to pursue higher education.
So you said when you were in high school that your dreams were to study engineering, but also to find a husband who would accept you being an engineer. How did that work out?
No, it's a joke that I use, when saying that my parents wanted me to be a teacher. So I said, no, I'm going to the Technion. And in the Technion, there were not lots of girls studying in the Technion. So they said, but you might not find a husband. So this was another thing to do in the Technion, like to look for a good husband and
Get good
and
grades
get a
and look
degree.
for a husband.
Yeah, but
So,
I was
so you
lucky.
ended up finding your husband in the Technion. Tell us about him.
His name is Imad. And I still feel very lucky that I'm married to Imad. He's my friend. He's my best partner and my husband. Imad studied electrical engineering, and he was older 3 years, I guess, than me. So when I started in the Technion, he was just finishing. And we met there, and the rest is history.
And where is he from?
He's also from Nazareth. We met in Haifa. His family roots go back to the 1500s.
Wow.
Yeah.
At the time you said that there were no Israeli Arabs in tech jobs because most of the tech jobs were in security and Arabs couldn't get clearance. So most educated Arabs had to opt for underemployment by becoming school teachers.
Exactly.
Like you mentioned your mother, for example. Yet you and your husband decided that if there were no jobs in the tech sector, you would create those jobs and started not one but two companies. How did you have the courage to do that?
I don't know. I think it's not the courage. I would say it's being naive. Like, looking back, I don't know if I would do it again because we did not want to compromise. Imad wanted to work in the tech, so we decided we're starting this Alpha Omega company in Nazareth. And I understood absolutely nothing about high tech. So I said, what about me? I mean, we're relocating from Haifa to Nazareth, so I need a job. And this was this crazy idea of creating another company for me to work in.
So tell us about this company, Alpha Omega, that you created.
Alpha Omega is the high-tech company for the medical device. And the company that I created, the name of it is Alpha CAD. It's for CAD tools. We gave support for engineers. Basically, we transferred people or engineers from using the pencil and the ruler to use the computer. So we taught them how to use CAD tools and do everything on the computer.
Why were these the companies you started? What was the genesis of the ideas?
Imad looked a lot for a job, and the first job that he found was at the Technion, at the Faculty for Medicine. And there he worked with neuroscientists. So when we decided to start our own company, actually you can't call Alpha Omega a startup because we did not have an idea. And if you look at the name, I mean, it's from A to Z, we'll do anything from A to Z. So we said we'll create a company and we'll be subcontractors for the high-tech sector. But since the people that he knew were in the neuroscience field, we ended up doing neuroscience and neurosurgery.
So Alpha Omega today is a leading company in the field of neuroscience and functional neurosurgery for the treatment of neurological and psychiatric diseases. Your father died of Parkinson's before your technology was available.
Yeah.
How did that affect you at the time, and how do you think about it now?
I mean, for me, it's a pity that I did not get to meet my real father. Since I was young, he was sick, so all the time it was that I needed to take care of him. He was not himself at the end, but I knew that he was a great person and a very good man. So what keeps me on now is that I'm helping other families not to go through the same suffering that I had during my childhood.
So tell us, how does this work? How does this help people with neurological diseases or psychiatric diseases?
So the first option for them is to have medications. And after a while, the medications start to have side effects. You get the medications and you're getting worse all the time. This is the time where neurosurgeons recommend a surgery. And the surgery is about implanting an electrode inside the brain in a very specific area and giving electrical current. And this would stop the symptoms of the disease. It will not cure people, but people can go back to their daily life. So the role of Alpha Omega is doing the targeting inside the brain. So we do the GPS inside the brain, and we help the neurosurgeons get to the right point that they need to get.
Is Alpha Omega unique in this field, or how is it different than the competitors?
Alpha Omega is the leader in its field. We have other competitors who are at our size, small, and we have giant competitors like Medtronic and Boston Scientific. But luckily, this year, we signed an agreement with Medtronic that they would stop selling their system and they would start selling Alpha Omega system. So I can't say anything more about Alpha Omega. Otherwise, they would not sell Alpha Omega systems.
Did you bootstrap Alpha Omega, or did you take outside money?
Bootstrap.
So you and your husband own 100%?
Almost.
How did you fund it originally when you were young and just starting this company? Where did the funds come from?
We had 2 used cars. We sold 1 car. And Imad's father gave us 4 gold coins that we sold. And this was the start.
4 gold coins?
Yes.
And you sold all 4 of them?
Yes. And both tables and computers.
What were the gold coins? I'm curious.
Usually when you marry, you have to bring gold for your wife. The gold is supposed to be for dark days. So Imad's father was so sure that the dark days came. So he gave him the 4 gold coins.
When you started your company, he was so sure that's it. You guys need your 4 gold coins now.
Yeah.
Going back to the issue of Arabs in tech, why do you think there are today still so few Arab Israeli success stories? And what's holding back more women and Arab Israelis from following your example?
We can talk from today till tomorrow about barriers, but looking at Israel and thinking where is the high tech concentrated, it's in Tel Aviv. Looking where the Arab people live, they live in the periphery. So basically, geographically, we're far. No good transportation between the Arab areas and Tel Aviv. Like for me to get to Tel Aviv, it will take 3 hours in the morning, even driving.
And 3 hours back home.
Yeah. But the other thing is that we lack the trust between the Arab community and the Jewish community. For someone who has a company, it's easier to employ the person who looks like you, speaks like you. So employing a person who's a little bit different from you is an extra effort. I think this is very important. The other thing is that the trust of the Arab workforce, that even if we apply to an Israeli company, they will not invite us for an interview. And this needs to be changed. And lots of organizations are working in this, which I'm I'm proudly taking part in these organizations to try and close these gaps between the employer and the talent, because we have really great talent and it's just a waste.
So you're a board member of MEET, Middle Eastern Entrepreneurs of Tomorrow. Tell us about some of the success stories coming out of that.
MEET is a unique organization because it brings the Jewish individual in front of the Palestinian individual. And spending 2.5 years together, they see that they are not that different from each other.
They start winking at each other and understanding what it means.
Exactly. This is the greatness about MEET. We had friendships grown from there. We had people doing businesses together. But this is the side stories. What I believe is that putting the person in front of the person, giving them this opportunity, this is the thing that can give us a better
Isn't
world.
that crazy that basically what you're saying is when you take a program like MEET, really what the biggest takeaway from it is the byproduct, is just bringing these people together. And it's crazy because we live in such a small country and we live side by side, and yet we have so little opportunity
bubbles.
to meet each other. So do you have any Jewish friends? Do you have, Jewish people in your environment on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, of course, but
You're the exception.
Exactly. I remember once I was at the board of the employment service, and they looked for how can they be diverse. So they invited me to be at the board, and I sat there, and there were people around that table that was the first time for them to interact with an Arab.
What other organizations or initiatives are you part of to make change?
I'm part of an initiative called the Co-Impact. It's an initiative for helping employing Arabs in the Israeli market. I'm part of an organization called Kav Mashvei, doing the same for employment. I sit at the board of Ort Braude in Carmel. It's a college that 50% of the students are Arabs from the periphery. I'm at the MEET board. I'm at the GEN, which is Global Entrepreneurship Network board.
Well, that's 7 or 8 more boards than the rest of us. So that's plenty.
How does that make you feel to be the kind of Arab representative? I guess when people look for, they want to be more diverse and they're looking for someone and they find you, and you have to be, and like you say, very often it's the first time they're interacting with an Arab person. Do you feel like you have to be on your best behavior to represent an entire community?
At the beginning, it was really stressful, but I thought about it a little and I said, this is me. I have to be me with all of my bad habits. But I do feel huge responsibility on my shoulders. Like, I promised my kids that I want to leave them a better place. Being an ambassador of your community, but no one gave me this title to be ambassador of my community. I guess it's something that I do feel it, but I mean, if you go and ask around, is Reem the ambassador of your community? You would get a no for sure.
So who inspires you? Who are your role models? Because I'm sure you inspire many people.
Role models change in my life. Now, I guess my role model is Steph Wertheimer. Steph Wertheimer is the best person. We need another 10 people like Steph Wertheimer, and Israel would look different, much different. Steph Wertheimer is a great industry person who decided that peace comes through people working together, through export. So he created 6 industrial parks in the periphery, not in the center of Israel. And there, Jewish people, Arab people, Druze, all people work together in order to do export and to give Israel a better economy.
And following his example of building and selling a company for billions of dollars to Warren Buffett.
I mean, I'm not looking to sell Alpha Omega. I'm looking for Alpha Omega to stay another 100 years after Imad and me are not here. So it's not about the money and selling with the dollars. It's more about bringing people together so they can work together and live good.
It's amazing that you name Steph Wertheimer as your current role model. He is Jewish. Do you feel like in your community, people are able to accept help that comes from Jewish Israelis in terms of investment or in terms of nonprofit projects meant to develop your community? How do people feel about it?
I would say that the Arab community during the last 10 years shifted the way that we think. The community wants to be part of the Israeli economy. We do not want to be behind. And we're ready to accept help from everyone who can help us. Getting help from people who know more than you is good. But after that, you have to go to your village or to your city and implement. So basically, this is what we say when we talk about employment of young academic Arabs in the Israeli market. We want them to go and work at Microsoft, at Google, at whatever companies. But after that, my personal dream is that I want them to go back to their communities and start their own startups there.
You talk about the shift of the outlook in the Arab community towards Israeli economy and wanting to be part of it, and especially the growth in the high-tech world. How does that translate into politics? We're just coming off elections. Do you feel there's been a shift there too in terms of Arab involvement in Israeli politics, wanting to be a part of it, or is that still something that is different?
It is. The last elections, we saw that the joint list succeeded much better, but I would not call it a success for me because there were lots of people who did not want to vote, who did not feel that they want to be part of the election or to be part of the politics. But I can see a shift in the way that the leaders are talking. If we look at Ayman Audi, it's a bit different. He's ready to talk with guns. He's ready to talk with other people. This language we could not hear 5 or 6 years ago. So I believe it's a turn, a small one, but if we use it right, this would affect the whole status of the Arab community in Israel.
It's subtle. What you're saying is that a lot of things start with language. You can't yet see the practical outcomes, but just the fact that he's able to talk about talking with the other side is a subtle message that perhaps could lead to some changes.
Yeah, but it depends if the other side wants to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it takes two to tango, as you know.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean, the language is starting to be different. And being the third power in the government, I mean, this gives them a huge advantage.
Reem, looking back at your success, do you think it came perhaps because of the challenges you faced or in spite of the challenges you faced?
It came because of one thing. Ahmad is very stubborn, and he has this saying that says, if you try 1,000 times, one time will succeed. So, I mean, if it was for me alone, I think I would quit a long time ago.
And Alpha CAD, the other company, was actually acquired, I think, in 2003?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that story? Were you happy with the outcome?
What happened is that I told Ahmad, lots of my Jewish friends go and live for 2 years out of Israel. So why can't we do it? I said, we'll build the U.S. Branch. So we decided to relocate 2 years.
To where?
To Atlanta, Georgia. And then I had to decide whether I'm selling my share in Alpha CAD. And I decided I want to go out. And it was basically because the mission that we talked about was accomplished. We said we would computerize all the engineering sector in the Arab community, and the mission was accomplished. And little by little, I started seeing myself as only selling CAD tools.
What do your children want to do? Some of them, I think, are already older. They're 29. You have a young one still at home. What did they do, and what do they want to do? And what do you want for them?
I want for them to be happy. and to be proud with whom they are. So, talk about Dima. She's 29 years old. She decided to study architectural design, and she wanted to find a job alone without being related to Imad and Reem, because she's not the daughter of Imad and Reem. This is what she said. So she found a job and she worked for 3 years. And one day she came back home and she said, I looked at my boss and her chair is not enough for me. I want to move to the high tech. So now she's working at Alpha Omega and she's happy with this. Jude, our boy, he's 23. He decided that he's not going to be an engineer. It was a clear statement. So he started studying philosophy and economy. And now he's taking a break because he's not sure that it's what he wants. So we're waiting to see what he decides about his life. Nada, she's 16. She's in the 11th grade. She's so passionate about gymnastics. So she's doing gymnastics more than studies, but she's happy.
Amazing. How connected do your kids feel to Israel?
This is a hard question, because we need to start by how connected they are to Nazareth, to their community, and then to Israel. Because if they feel connected to Nazareth, they would be connected to their community, and after that to Israel. So I think Dima is internalizing these things more than Jude, and Jude more than Nada. They try to convince people to vote, which means that they do care about their community. About Israel, when I define myself, I say I'm a Palestinian Israeli. And when the day comes and I say Israeli, and everybody understands that Israeli could be Jewish and could be Arab and could be everything. We're talking about a diverse country. When all of us say we're Israelis, it doesn't mean that I'm Jewish. When you travel, they ask you, where are you from? So you say Israel. So they start saying, Shalom. Like, no, I'm not Jewish. And they ask me, what are you? I say, I'm an Arab. So they say, Assalamu alaikum. I say, wa alaikum assalam, but I'm not a Muslim. So what are you? No, I'm a Christian. So are you a Christian Jewish? No. So
Truly unique.
I mean, for people to understand that complexity, you need to explain it. But when you say that you're from the US, I would not assume anything. You could be anything if you say you're an American. So if we say Israeli and you could be anything, I would start defining myself then by only an Israeli. But it's a long way.
Beautiful vision. I hope we get there.
Reem, thank you so much for speaking with us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Founder Stories is brought to you by F2 Capital in partnership with IDC International Radio and No Camels. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app.